Ha.
Morning.
Working. How we doing?
Fab, you all right?
Good. Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Good morning.
Hi, Christoph. Kathy, Chrissy.
Morning.
Ben Wolf. Good to see you, Ben. It's been too long.
Good morning.
How we doing? We've got Favaro here. Linda. I reckon it's going to be our busiest call ever. Except when Freddie gave out his speed seduction strategies from the 80s. That was also a very, very busy call.
Where are that? Well, I need to find that right now.
Yeah. It's just too effective. It's dangerous. Helen Wyer, how you doing? There she is. I'm going to make you the co-host. Hello, Helen. I'll spotlight you in a bit. You're going to need to unmute if you want to say hello.
Oh, hello.
There we go. It's Helen, everyone. But we've had over 200 people register for this. I suspect we'll get slightly less than half, but we'll give them a couple of minutes to arrive, as I've only just opened up the room. We will use this little chat window as usual. Hello. So just so you know how that works, if you don't mind, one more time. Let us know where you're from. It's always fun to see the global spread, and with an issue like this, it's of course global. Depending on where you look, it's estimated that around 11% of the population suffer with IBS. That's a lot of people. There we go. Good old Ipswich, Ibiza. Must be, is it getting near the end of the season? Or do they push? I've never been. Do they push on in Ibiza?
Yeah, we've got about second weekend in October it finishes. So yeah, we're getting there.
Lots of tears. Lots of smoke machines. Are you regularly DJing, Helen?
Not at the minute, just because of my hip. I've got the radio show though, so I'm doing that. I've just finished that this morning.
Wow.
But yeah, I've got a couple of gigs next week just for the end of the season. But I've had a quiet year really DJing because of my hip. So
Right. I see you posting about that. So have you had an op?
no, not yet.
Right. Okay.
Not yet. No. Physio, cortisone. Just trying to delay it a little bit, really.
All right, everyone. 203 Bromley in Kent. Good. I used to drive through there regularly. Dad had a little business near there. Buckinghamshire. Okay. So I can see there's a couple of people here I know are IBS or gastro focused in their work. How many of you, are regularly working with IBS? Clients with IBS, that is. Let's see.
Here I am, Anthony.
I know you are, Favaro. Saw you there. And you kind of made this.
How you doing?
Very well, very well. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good. Ben Kelly, yes, you are. Christoph said a couple. A regular thing. So not too many. Okay, well, look, I know plenty of you know Helen. She was in one of our early cohorts. You may have met her on other trainings. I noticed on your website, Helen, you've done all sorts of stuff with Carl Smith and eye movement therapy and different bits and pieces. So some of you may have come across Helen already. I did do a brief interview with her. If you're a member of Jacquin Hypnosis Academy, you can probably find that in the bonus area, which was pretty popular. And I know some of you, contacted Helen and put questions to her. Since then, her work has developed in this area, and we stay in touch regularly, and she's built a successful business helping people with IBS. I think this is one area where many of us could actually create something of a niche. There's an endless supply of clients. This is a massive issue. It's an issue where certainly in terms of psychotherapy, the kind of work we might do, people are often underserved. More often they're coming at it from other angles. They're desperately trying to find answers in their diet, or look at medication, things like that. I think there's a massive opportunity here. We're going to talk about it today because this is one area where the evidence is really clear. There's a strong evidence base, not just some evidence, not just some research. There's what's regarded as a strong evidence base for hypnotherapy. There's essentially 3 teams around the world who are doing a lot of the work in this area. Same names come up again and again. The results of their work is accessible if you have a little poke around with Google Scholar. And when you dive in to the technique that's often used in the research, I think it's actually very simple. Possibly, you have a suite of tools available to you that could add something to what's typically used. But I really think the stuff that supports this evidence base is totally within our grasp. And part of that evidence suggests that a multi-session approach is the most effective way forward. And for many of us, building our hypnotherapy business, finding a niche for many is a challenge, right? Finding something that genuinely has a strong evidence base behind it. Well, to be honest, there's only really a few things you could choose from, as much as we will generally have a go at, helping people with just about anything. In terms of being able to say that, you're down to just less than a handful of issues. And third, breaking out of selling single sessions and seeing how things go makes it much easier to build a successful business. And if we want to stay in business, that's what we need to do. Okay. So Helen has done that after I don't know how many decades, but I'll say a couple in the world of teaching, which I guess is a pretty stressful environment. There's probably many teachers suffering with IBS. Must be a nightmare. She's dived into hypnotherapy. She has expanded, the toolkit, and she has created something which has led to her having a successful business. And I just looked, there's 110 5-star reviews on Helen's.
I've got 1 4-star, Anthony.
You got 1 4-star. Well, it's always good to have 1 4-star. There's always someone in there. I hope they explained why you lost the star. All right, but 110 reviews. I know we've been through this with some of you on the course when we actually have a little Google. Is your business registered on Google? And if it is, if someone searches, and apparently one of the most popular searches on Google is for our services is hypnotherapy near me. Suddenly geography is relevant again. It's rare that you see a private hypnotherapist with over 100 reviews. It tends to stand out. And if you want to have a read through, I'm going to be sharing links in here. But if you want to have a quick search, I'm going to share Helen's website. You could Google it and read through. There are dozens and dozens of reviews there where people have had IBS for years and their symptoms have gone. In many cases, they do not have the problem anymore. It's not just a bit of relief, although I'm certain they would be happy to pay for some relief because it's such a nightmare. Right, I've got one here. Having struggled with IBS for 5 years, I came to realize a lot of my symptoms came from anxiousness. After a few sessions, I noticed a tangible positive change in my symptoms. And I also now have practical skills and methods to stay on top of any anxiety. Another one, Helen's kind and confident in her ability to help people. Believe in her confidence because she works magic. I was really struggling with IBS symptoms. And after working with Helen, I am no longer suffering. This is life-changing for people who have this problem. Given that 11% of people are suffering with it at any given time, I'm guessing some of you here are or have suffered with it. And I'm guessing certainly you have known or know people with this issue.
And Anthony, I think it's important to say that the 11% are those people that have been actually diagnosed by a hospital.
Right.
And there's an awful lot of other people that are almost self-diagnosed or with their GP have just come to that conclusion without going through the huge process that the hospital diagnosis involves.
Right. So, it's highly likely it's significantly higher than that, isn't it? People are suffering. And, because the nature of the symptoms, a bit personal, a bit embarrassing for some, people don't necessarily want to seek diagnosis. It's one of those things I think you consistently hope will just sort of sort itself out because you have good days and bad days. And perhaps you link it to work or diet or some irritation. So there's a real market. So this is an interview today. I will share later on. I know Helen has a workshop planned. It's a 4-hour thing. It's going to take place on October the 8th. And she is going to teach you absolutely everything that her protocol consists of. Because Helen's trained with us, yes, a whole lot of those tools will be familiar to you if you've done JHA stuff, but she really, has put it together in a unique way and brought other bits and pieces to it. I'm going to dig in with questions today and uncover, as much of that as I can in the next 60 minutes or so. So, Helen, perhaps we could just start. Let's start on a positive note. I wonder if you could perhaps share, either perhaps the first time you helped someone with this that really stood out, where you just thought, oh, I've done a good thing here. This person doesn't have the problem, or just a standout, case where it was most definitely life-changing for someone. Perhaps you've got a couple of stories like that. This is Helen, everyone. Helen Wyer. You can go on speaker mode, and then you should be able to see whoever's speaking. Helen.
Okay. And I think I said that, I shared that when I did the presentation last year, but I think that was the first person that I'd actually worked with for IBS. He just phoned me up, said, can you help me with IBS? Sure, I can do that. And then I thought, I now need to find a way to do that. But that's how I tended to be when I was teaching. And he talked a lot. His life was very, very restricted, and even in terms of where he took his dog for a walk. And I think one of the nicest cards, and I've still got it, it's over there actually, just sitting there, and it was from his dog, because he'd said that every morning he used to take the dog round what he called the block, which was about a quarter of a mile, but he knew that should he need to go back to the house and use the bathroom, he could be there in an instant. And this dog sent me a card with it's complete with a muddy footprint saying, I've been off round the fields for the first time in 5 years, thank you so much for helping my owner. So that one was just very amusing. I'm a dog lover anyway to get that one. And then people, a young girl who'd with her boyfriend, I think she'd ever been on holiday further than, again, about half an hour away, just down the coast, and then went off to, I think it was Ibiza actually, or it's somewhere like that. She'd never done that before. So that's huge for somebody to get that freedom. And then it was actually when I went to the retreat, the JHA retreat in June, had to think there which, and somebody came up to me there and said, and I hadn't realized, and said, you worked with my ex-partner, I've just got to thank you, because he said you really gave him his life back. So they were just amazing. And I do tend to keep in contact with everybody actually, whatever I see them for. It primarily is IBS, just every 6 months or so. Hey, how are you doing? And all of them, are doing really, really well. So it's not, it's my belief, it's not just a one-hit wonder. It's it's gone for good, or symptoms are hugely reduced permanently, and that's a huge thing for people.
Yep. And just to be clear, you said it there. It sounds like with almost everyone you are working with this issue, they are experiencing benefit. So, your reviews are a testament to that. And I appreciate, it's not like you've been able to filter them from 10 years of work, but you're happy to stand by that. Almost everyone that you see for IBS is experiencing benefit.
Yeah, and there are two people that stand out that didn't, and I will explain those. And one person, and it was a lady, and suddenly things weren't going quite as well as expected, and it was like, okay, what's going on here? And you go through the sort of normal questions, and she just looked at me, and I was really taken aback by her honesty. But she did say, if I lose the IBS, she said, I think I might lose my husband. My husband's, gives me a lot of attention, and he's almost a bit of a carer, and I'm not sure our relationship is strong enough. Wow. Now, it's not for me to say, well, is that the relationship you want? You can gently go down that sort of line. But for her, the reason for keeping where she was stronger than the reason for losing it. So I don't, that's something I don't feel bad about at all. Yeah. And somebody else, again, just one of the things we often say, isn't it? It's all about following instructions and things after we've gone through, I can't think what you call it, those set pieces at the beginning, sort of thing. And, and when I was talking to him, he said, I don't want to do that. Well, again, there's precious little in those situations that you can do. But if, otherwise, I would say, I've got a 100% track record of either complete elimination or really, really reduced.
Yeah, I mean, that is just amazing, isn't it? And I guess, even significantly reduced, it's a bit like, I shared that stat from a pain, I think Ollie's here, I think maybe he shared it with me actually, where they asked people who are in chronic pain, what would be a significant reduction in pain? They said 30%. That was what clients actually say about their chronic pain, which I found, not just encouraging, because we can do almost anything as an intervention and reduce chronic pain by 30%, I think, most of the time. I'm guessing it's similar with people with IBS. They may not quite have hope of a a cure of freedom, but if their symptoms could simply be reduced by a significant amount, that would be good. All right, so I'm going to share a few little papers today, but let me just share a simple sentence, a definition of the disorder of IBS from the UNC Centre for Functional GI and Motility Disorders. They say irritable bowel syndrome is a disorder that is defined by a specific pattern of gastrointestinal symptoms in the absence of abnormal physical findings. So I think that's an important place to start. I was ignorant of that fact until another Helen Bremner, shared that at Change Phenomena many years ago, because the people that I knew with IBS certainly seemed to have the mind that, no, there's something wrong in there. And over time, their belief was generally that, and it's deteriorating, whatever it is, it's getting worse. So a sort of a belief that there must be something abnormal physically in there. So does that sit okay with you? Is that how you kind of think of it?
Most people that come to me, they've been through, IBS is I think they describe it as something, as a process of elimination of what it's not. And then there are certain, I can't remember the exact, there's about 14, I believe, symptoms. And as long as you exhibit something like sort of 10 of them for at least 6 months. So people often have to have suffered for 6 months before anybody can even do something. Also, they're always told, GP, well, we're just going to send you for tests just to eliminate that it's not anything more serious. And so somebody generally goes, what do you mean more serious? And so often it's cancer or something like that. And then, of course, we're set up to, aren't we, to already go cancer, sort of thing, even though they go, no, I'm sure that probably isn't. So people cannot, and also often people, they've had cameras stuck in every orifice known to man, which has been embarrassing, it's been distressing. And all the time they're waiting almost to hear, oh, it could be cancer, it could be this. And again, in my experience, I'm not sure a lot of medical professionals are always, they're so used to dealing with just, the facts. They're not that good at taking care of people in that situation. So they can sometimes say something which this person will hold on to for a long time. And I think I've read somewhere we're predisposed, I think, to, figures of authority. So like consultants and things, we almost take on board what they say as truth. Sort of thing, and go into all that. So it's, and even if sometimes people haven't gone down that route, but the doctor may have said to them, I think it probably is IBS. We're pretty certain of this because of other factors and blood tests we've done. But it takes quite a long time. To do that.
Absolutely. So let's just say one thing there, because when we're teaching people, we always say this in our contraindications and our health and safety bit. If someone is coming to see you with unexplained IBS symptoms, they have not seen a doctor, not had a diagnosis, then they should go and see their doctor. They should, of course, eliminate at least a couple of the other issues that share the symptom, but it could be something more serious. Hopefully, they will meet someone who cares and is sensitive in that process, but just to put that out there. But let's imagine that is done. You said, I think you said 6 months there. One thing I read was that in terms of diagnostic criteria for IBS, that the Rome 2 criteria, I think this is an international agreed upon way of giving that diagnosis. It would require the patient to have abdominal pain for at least 12 weeks within the past 12 months. I mean, again, perhaps it varies from place to place, and that pain meets 2 of the following 3 criteria. It's relieved after bowel movement. It is associated with a change in stool frequency or with stool form. Okay, so there, you know, of course, we've just got 3 potential symptoms, but this particular paper, I'm going to share this PDF in a minute, goes on to talk about a massive array of symptoms, body symptoms, headaches reported by 23 to 45% of IBS patients. Back pain is reported between 28 and 81%, depending on which paper you read. Frequent urination, 20 to 56%. Fatigue, 35%. Bad breath, unpleasant taste. And it kind of goes on, like heart palpitations, sensitivity to cold, pain during intercourse. It's like there's nearly 30 symptoms lifted here. So when you see people, do they often present with an array of symptoms? And I guess the other thing is, do you find it's often overlapping with perhaps another issue, like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or anything like that? Have you found any kind of patterns there?
Definitely there's lots of different, it's not just, you know, diarrhea or constipation or something like that, of course. And there is an overlap between, often with anxiety and all things related to that. Yeah, occasionally. And again, when you were going through those lists, I was thinking, well, if you think about it, you know, the whole digestive system, you know, that is running our whole body along with the circulatory system. So if that's not working effectively, we are going to feel tired, we are going to get headaches and things. Okay. And yeah, sometimes it can, I have worked with people with yes, what do you call it, fibromyalgia, or what's the one, CFS, is that what you call CF? You know what I mean, chronic fatigue. But sometimes in working with, it's like that ripple effect or domino effect. You start working in one area and change of course goes into other areas. And I can't remember, I heard it once and I just thought, I love that phrase. And it's, you know, you never know how far a change will go, you know, talking about that ripple effect. And you do definitely see that in so many different areas. And again, you can see from the reviews I've been left what people will say.
Yeah. And one other thing there, because you mentioned stress and anxiety, you know, as hypnotherapists, so many of our clients, whether they come for that or not, are experiencing it. Have most of your clients made a connection or perhaps got the belief that at least a portion of their problem is related to their anxiety? Or is that something that, you know, you have to...
Half and half. What really amazes me is how many people have no idea that the impact of stress and things like that on the digestive system. Now, as I think I said to you, and I'm old enough to have done O-levels rather than GCSEs, and I gave up science, you know, the sciences, I didn't do them for A-levels. But even then, I'd already knew just from basic, you know, basic biology that there was a connection there. But I am very surprised how many people do not know that. Right. And just sometimes in talking about that, and again, I'll explain more of that when, you know, in the workshop. But that can be a huge stepping stone on their way to feeling much better.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. So, you know, there's a bit about the issue. I'm not sure if that link's working. I'll try and make sure it does in a minute. It's a bit of a weird one. It says Chrome extension. Maybe that's it. I need that bit. Let's try this instead. There it is. Good old Patrick. It's fixed it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit then about, you know, your approach. I know it's a multi-session approach. So typically, well, first of all, let's just talk a little bit about business, if you don't mind. What do you charge, and how many sessions do you typically see an IBS client for?
Typically, my package is 5 sessions, and I charge £595 for that. You know, again, I've been told I need to charge a lot more, but I think I said to you, it's that real dilemma of needing to, well, I want to be affordable for people, but also, you know, make a living out of that. And I feel comfortable with that, to do that. And those 5 sessions are spaced. So by the end, it might be that I'm not between the 4th and the 5th session. I might not see somebody for 6 weeks, because, you know, it's really making sure that they are confident that things have changed for them. And, you know, that's a huge thing. They need to go and test it out in real life and go, wow, that's different, you know, sort of thing. So all those, that's the way I stagger the sessions.
Okay.
And
again,
it's
a package. So people are paying for their package up front, I'm guessing, if they can afford to do that. Yeah. And
again, you know, people will have to do their own thing on that. You know, I've got some, especially younger people, you know, trying to save deposits for houses and things like that. We will come to some arrangement, so they perhaps pay it, but they pay it in installments rather than, you know, but I don't charge more for that. You know, it's that thing that you do, that you just get that feel for as you're working with people. Some people prefer when I'm working overseas, because again, you get a lot of what's the technical word, currency, you know, the exchange rate and things like that. It's actually better, I think, for them to transfer it, because otherwise I think, but somebody may correct me on this, I'm not very good on the financial side of things, but I think you get less exchange rate, you have to pay it otherwise on each time. So most people overseas I work with, because I worked with somebody not that long ago, and I was like, how on earth did you find me? They were in Cape Town, and they said, well, you know, I'm a so-and-so, and you helped the person in London with IBS. We'd got chatting, I think there was a firm of solicitors, and she said, I could Google therapists in Cape Town, but I don't know who they are. I'd come up with about 1,000. You know, whereas you sorted his life out, can you please help me? So apart from working out the time difference, that was all fine as well.
All right, so, you know, a 5-session package, and you know, just over £500, which again is pretty reasonable. I know
595, so it's
595. You know, I know people throw around massive numbers and all this kind of stuff, but the reality, as far as I'm concerned, certainly in the UK, is that people are charging either side of £100. That's it. It may be 60, it may be 150, but that's what most hypnotherapists are charging. Even though, you know, you can go and get your Harley Street address and charge 5 times as much. In the reality of things, if we want to see, you know, an array of clients, I guess that is certainly a reasonable cost if they want to break it down per session.
And if I say to you, I mean, I'm probably seeing 4 to 5 clients every day. I don't work Fridays unless I really have to. That's my time for me, because, you know, I've done teaching, I've done stress and burnout, but I would say regularly in a week, it's about 4, on average, about 4 to 5 a day, some face-to-face, some over, you know, some on Zoom. And that's I'm comfortable with that.
That's a pretty good living. You know, if you can keep those clients rolling in for 4 days a week, and like you said, you've done teaching, which I guess is if it's not a 5 day a week job, it's probably a 7 day a week job. So, you know, it allows you to have some of the lifestyle you want, some of the freedom you want. And I'm also right in that you work from this spot that you're sitting in right now. Okay. No fancy green screen. I don't see too much lighting. It looks very homely, you know, so you don't get, you know, again, I'm not critical of your beautiful backdrop and wall here, but it looks like pretty, you know, easy, simple setup. You open up your laptop or whatever it is you're looking at right now, and you get to work. Is that right?
Yeah, and again, when we all went into, I'd done a little bit on Zoom before COVID, but just with, say, uni students that were great at calling you in 2 weeks before they went off to uni, and then, you know, perhaps when you needed to see them again, so I would do that on Zoom, and then probably COVID really, as for everybody, changed that. And I often think people would quite laugh, really. I do have my I think it's a £30 desk I got from Amazon or somewhere like that. I did buy a microphone. £20, I think, and a light, which was about the same. And everyone's going, oh, you need all these green screens, you need all these fabulous backdrops and all this sort of business. And I just thought, well, yeah, I'll get round to doing that. 2 and a bit years later, I never have. This is my sofa, which actually is our guest bedroom. It actually turns into a sofa bed. But again, I've never had anybody say to me,
Yeah.
I don't like your back, you know, green screen. So yeah.
No, but it's good to know, because you know, again, one of the things people get caught up in sometimes is that I'm not quite ready to go, I'm not quite set up enough, I'd need to polish this and that.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it just
going to answer, there was one question just popped up there from somebody saying, where do my clients find me? A lot of, again, like the Cape Town person, a lot of these people, sometimes they can be in groups. I was thrown out of a Facebook group for IBS for offering a solution, which I found quite interesting, whereas they said no, they were very much a support group. And I'm guessing if you look behind that, that's very much then, well, if I lose this, I lose that community. But I would say a lot of it is 80% is word of mouth, definitely. And I'm very fortunate in that there's not a local hospital, bizarrely, but the one next to that. Again, I think I helped somebody that from there, and the consultant, he did call me up and he said, if ever, because an NHS consultant, I think I'm right, they're not allowed to name a specific person.
Yeah.
They're allowed to say, have you thought about hypnotherapy or something like that? But in the UK, they're certainly not allowed to name a specific person. I know from teaching, when you've sometimes had conversations with parents, you start sort of saying, you know, if I'm ever asked, I will deny everything I've ever said, you know, and I think he does the same. He sends me a lot of people.
That's great. That's good to know.
And sometimes I will send letters to, if the person I'm working with, I will say to them, you know, do you mind if I write to your GP and just, you know, tell them about all the changes we've noticed here. So I will write sometimes to, you know, I've just got a letter that I adapt for each person and just send that off. And sometimes, again, if you look at the pattern, you think, oh, that's interesting, because it comes from that same GP practice.
Yeah. No, that is a great little tip there. Which I guess, you know, we could apply to different, help people quit smoking or get out of pain, whatever. That's a pretty bold move.
Yeah, and
you know, absolutely nothing to lose, have you?
And I just noticed there was another, it's quite difficult to keep an eye on the chat.
I'll keep an eye on the questions. I'm not going to let anything.
But there was somebody there saying about the NHS saying there is no cure for it. And I would say that is huge. The amount of people that will say, well, I've been told I'm going to have this pain for life, or I've got this for life. There is no cure. You know, and that's a huge part of the work that we do, is to give people hope.
Okay, wonderful. So a couple of others. There was one that whizzed by. Do you guarantee your work? I don't think you give a money back guarantee, do you?
No. And again, I would say for anything, you know, no, I don't guarantee anything, just like a surgeon wouldn't guarantee their work. However, I would say, based on my experience, and have a look for yourself, you know, this is what I can help you with. Okay,
that's good to know. And someone just said, you know, how long has it taken to build your business to this point? So I guess perhaps from that first IBS client to seeing, you know, having 4 days worth of.
Well, 5 years ago, I'd never heard of the word hypnosis apart from on TV programs. Yep. You know, 5 years ago, I was teaching. So I set my business up 4 years ago. You know, so that was my basic training 4 years ago. Yep. And I had to make a living because I was going to burn out if I carried on teaching. Had to get out of teaching for my own health and a few other, you know, lots of bereavements in the same year and things like that. And it was, I need to leave this and do something else. So I think there's quite a big, when you actually have to make a living, you find ways to do that. And yes, if I've been going 4 years, which I don't think.
But I guess the last year and a half have been pretty significant.
Yeah, and you know, as I think I said to you, you know, the Jacquin approach has, you know, and all the things I've learned there has that's when I would say, yes, I've been doing well up to that point, but that's when I flew by, you know, by integrating all those other things.
Yeah, great. Okay. Again, I can see all these questions. I'm not going to ask them all yet, but I am going to get to all of them. There's questions about homework, questions about other issues. Okay, so I will keep scrolling up and down in this chat, and we will get to it. This one from Andreas is what's the kind of distribution between men and women? Is it 50-50 pretty much, or?
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't find any, yeah, I would say, yeah, just thinking off the top of my head, I probably could go and look back through everything, but I would say just, yeah, 50-50.
Okay, good. And in terms of age range, you mentioned someone who was pretty young there.
Yeah, I didn't know. I have to say, I did not know that even you know, really youngsters. And I worked with the youngest lad I worked with. He was 12, and he'd been diagnosed when he was, I believe, 7 or 8, something like that. That's unusual in my experience.
But you do see people in their, you know, late teens, 20s, 30s.
Yeah, right the way up to, yeah, I mean, somebody I'm working with at the moment, bless her heart, she's 90. So, you know, I saw a thread in a post in another group going, can you do hypnosis with elderly people? Yes, you can. You know, they're just people. She's 90, bless her heart, and just said, and again, she said, I wish I'd found you 20, 30 years ago. She didn't, but she's doing really well now. So
brilliant. It's just great, isn't it, to be able to help people that way. Suffered for decades. So let's spend a bit of time then digging into your approach. Again, I know you can't give it all away here, but you know, let's first of all perhaps focus on what happens, if anything, before you are face to face with them on Zoom. You know, do you have one of these strategy calls? Do you give them a questionnaire? Is there anything they have to do before they get to that first session?
I don't offer, I mean, sometimes people will just connect through email, sometimes through messengers, sometimes they will phone you up. Yep. I will spend about 10 minutes on a phone call and, you know, sort of thing, just to answer any view. But otherwise, you know, I'm busy enough. I can't spend all my time doing, and plus it's my time. And, you know, so I will get somebody in for generally around 90 minutes that first time. We go through a range of questions that, again, you know, I'll show people when they do the course. We'll go through, because it gives me, you know,
can you give us a few of those, you know, key questions?
Oh, well, the obvious ones of what do you want is always a classic one. And, you know, when did this all start? You know, what was going on around that time? You know, we'll talk a little bit about some of the symptoms they're experiencing. I tend to chart it. And then, you know, generally then it's a lot of that first session is all to do with about but, you know, those beliefs that they come in with. It's a bit like when the stop smoking session, you know, or a weight loss session. I mean, I don't tend to do those. I'm busy enough doing what I do. But a lot of it is about that, you know, getting rid of, busting those beliefs.
Okay. Can I just pause you there? So you said one of the things you ask early on is, and you know, how long has this been a problem? And was there anything particular going on around that time?
Yeah.
Do most people have an answer to that? Like, yeah, actually I was moving house and it was massively stressful, or
I would say 100% of people generally. And if not, if they don't immediately, then when you just start doing a little bit more digging or talking around it, then they do.
Okay. And what, you know, I'm sure there's a massive array of things they might say, but what kind of things have you heard?
Generally fairly sort of traumatic things. So yeah, or very stressful things. Can be bullying at school, bullying at work, can be moving house, can be even getting married, which, although, you know, is a lovely thing for people, it can be very stressful, can be bereavement, a diagnosis of or something in the family, you know, all sorts of things there that, big life events, really.
Okay. And most of those things you described there tend to be quite prolonged. They weren't just single issue traumas, bullying at work, moving house, planning a wedding. Would that
And
Would that
I
be
think
fair?
some people also, and that's why, again, why I tend to do also the longer approach. Some people are still living in a very, very stressful situation. They may be a
Right.
carer for a family member with, I don't know, say dementia, or who's got cancer. You know, there may be lots of things. So just it's being mindful of all that and thinking, yes, we can reduce stress and anxiety, but some of these people also need tools that they can use, because they cannot leave that situation.
Right. Got you. So you're trying to give them some, I don't know, ways to relax or take time out or maintain themselves, even though they're still in a stressful situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've perhaps got, you know, a reference as far as they're concerned for, you know, I was going through a lot at the time. Okay. Years or decades could have passed. They've now still got this issue. So do you kind of park that event, or is that like priority number one for you to go and, you know, do whatever we might do to revisit and reassess a past event? I know that clients are going to vary. I'm not.
Yeah, and I was going to say from my teaching experience, and I think I've had this conversation with you before, you know, the average person, but you've got to always obviously be working with the person in front of you. But if it's really, you know, quite often people will start crying, you know, as they talk about something. So it's obviously, even if it could have happened, my 90-year-old lady, you know, one of the things that she got very upset about was when she was evacuated during the war when she was 7. And bless her heart, you know, that's then, like, you think of how many years, and, you know, just momentarily talking about it, a tear just dripped down her face. So that was obviously a really good place to think, right, we're going to, you know, as you say, revisit and reassess that for her. So all that, so I would say that's a big part of it.
And that kind of gathering of information, it just, you know, is that 10 minutes or 60 minutes? What before you get into the sort of discussion?
My first session's a big consultation. As I say, I don't do it free, it's my time. And it's also, that session is so important to be building that rapport. You know, these people are, you know, they'll often say, because one of the questions I often go, oh, why hypnotherapy? You know, what's made you choose hypnotherapy? And I would say, if I had £20 for every time somebody say, I'm desperate, you're my last port of call, I would, you know, I'd have a lot of money, you know. So it's it's really building that rapport is huge. And some people in that first session you can do a lot more with. Some people, it's really being mindful of that person in front of you and picking up those cues and building that rapport. I read something the other day, and it was somebody said that some really famous, I don't know, not Milton Erickson, but somebody along that line said they actually couldn't start doing anything with somebody until about session 3, because this person was so terrified, this, that, and the other, and they needed, you know, that. I mean, that's not what I've found, but that's the sort of thing I'm saying, is you have to really, again, we're talking about IBS here, think of even the language, think of the metaphor I'm using now, trust your gut in that first session with somebody of what you do.
And that might take some time. So
and I'll explain all that in greater detail in the actual workshop itself.
But of those 90 minutes, you might spend 60 or more essentially asking questions and asking
questions, busting beliefs. We always do the bit with, you know, the set piece of different things, you know.
So you do some of that stuff. You give them a hypnotic experience in that session. All right. So we'll come to that in a second.
They believe that they can change.
Right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, because the word belief has been used a few times. So what, in your experience, what are the beliefs that you need to go to work on, or that may need to change in that first session?
This is me, and I've got it for life, and nothing will ever change. This is me. this is me, I've got it for life, and nothing will ever change. The doctors have told me I will suffer for life.
Right.
That's a really big one there.
Right. Doctors are actually saying that, are they?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've lost count of the number of people that will come in and go, well, I don't know whether you can help because my doctor has told me I'll be in pain for life, or my doctor's told me I've got this for life. There's nothing they can do apart from manage it. But again, think about it in terms of a lot of people, even with, say, just anxiety, they've been told, we will give you coping strategies, we will help you manage it in a lot of kind of different modalities. And the thought of, well, actually, I can do more than manage it, I can overcome it, is quite alien to most people.
Right. So how do you go about breaking beliefs like that, which seem pretty solid? Do you do it with, my friend John, I had a client once who said the same thing. How do you begin to sort of crack?
Again, I do, a lot of that. I do also explain about the power of the mind and how we are, say, figures of authority, how we're almost hypnotized by them to
Right.
feel as we do. Talk about things like that, and people usually get it. They understand it. So that's a big part of it. And then as well, going, well, okay, look at some of the reviews I've had, my friend John, all that sort of business, but again, in the handbook that we're going to give out during the workshop, I think there's about 8 different core beliefs that people come in with, which I describe, and also importantly describe ways that you can say, bust those beliefs, pop that bubble, I think is what your dad says.
Pop that bubble. So they begin to see a little bit of, chink of light, have a bit of hope that this might be possible. Is that the goal there?
Absolutely. And when you do something like, as you say, whatever you do, whether it's magic, I call it magic fingers, but I can't think, well, but you know what I mean, or the light and heavy hands and things like that, sometimes stick their hand to a table or something, that's a big, oh goodness me, look at what I can do here. Well, perhaps this can change for me.
And these things that, again, suddenly they're not just games, because you are showing their imagination affecting them physically. So it's a pretty good analogy or metaphor for, the kind of work that I guess you might do in subsequent sessions.
All
right. So you do some of those exercises at the end. Do you do a more prolonged hypno intervention in that first session, or is that pretty rare?
No, I do, not too much. And again, it's very mindful of that. So one of the questions I think I've said is on the form is, it could be, I will ask them something about hypnotherapy, so I have a thought of what they're thinking. Because if somebody says to you, I'm absolutely terrified of hypnotherapy, but I'm desperate, again, it's sort of like I would do something really little with them, just even in like 2 or 3 minutes, and just go, well, that was hypnosis, how was that? And they're like, oh, really, that's amazing. And then I'd go a little bit deeper. If somebody's told you they're terrified, it's building that rapport and saying, look, it's this, it's that, because again, their beliefs have come in even with hypnotherapy. And I would say we get, when we're in, when we do the JHA training, and we do the hypno buddies and the bigger groups, we're working with people in those things who they're not scared of it, they're in it, they know it, they love it. But a lot of people that I still, even say, if I'm out at a party anywhere, or I'm a hypnotherapist, it's like, whoa.
Of course,
there's still that huge belief. Reaction. Are you going to control me? Are you reading my mind?
I take that as seriously interested.
So
good. So another one, there's a bit of chat going on here about dietitians, nutritionists, food.
I do nothing to do with nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a dietitian. Again, it's sort of like, but
that's pretty massive, isn't it? Because for a lot of people with IBS, certainly the people I've known, you know, the route from, oh, I've eaten some bread, or I've had some beer, and now I'm bloated, you know, I haven't been able to go to the loo for 2 days. It's almost like a click word response, the association in their mind. And I guess these things have essentially become a trigger, even if it's not actually the food. You know, the association with the food is so strong. Is that another belief you have to work on?
Sometimes it can be, and sometimes people genuinely do have a food intolerance.
Right.
So the 12-year-old lad, and I'm trying to think desperately what he did have a specific intolerance, and I think it was just dairy or something. I'm sure it was. However, IBS can develop from, you know, because again, he was little, and you know, I don't know whether can't remember now whether he was breastfed or bottle fed. But you know, that they didn't work out that he was very, very intolerant to dairy products till probably he was about 8. Couple that then with the fact that he'd had extended spells in hospital, you know, little lad away from his family. So the kind of upset and trauma about that. You've got 2 things going on. Now, I can't suddenly make him become tolerant of dairy. Of course I can't. But you know, when again, I worked with him very successfully. He won't eat dairy. Well, I think he eats, I think he has things like soy milk or goat's milk. I think was fine with him. You know, but it's he was fine, and he was I think he's now. I'm sure his mum sent me an email last year saying he was in 6th form and everything was going well. No, he can't be that old. So he was 13, 4 or 5 years. So 16, 17, something like that.
He's done his GCSEs and he's better off. Okay, so again, it's quite important, isn't it, about kind of staying in our lane and recognizing we're not dietitians, and you know, yes, they may experience changes in that area, but we're not about to start giving nutritional advice unless we're qualified to do so. I would have thought it's just such a common thing. The associations are so strong, and the triggers become so well used, well worn. All right, so that's a glimpse into your first session. Do you give them any homework after that session? Do you actually, you know, is there something they have to do? Is it a week later you see them again?
Again, diary, I'd say sort of like a week to 2 weeks, you know, again, diaries permitting and all things like that. The first 2 to 3 tend to be pretty close together as you're, you know, building those changes. And again, the way I look at it is like anything that we practice, you know, think even, you know, when you learn to drive, if you were to have a lesson once and then not have a lesson for 6 months, you'd be having to go over old ground. The way I look at it in this way, and I think it was the guy who was Wellwell, is that his name? He did a lot of studies on IBS about, you know, people go away from that first session generally feeling, you know, and again, I get even texts back going, I can't believe it's only been 1 session. And you think, I didn't really do that much, but they go away and they'll come back going, I felt so much lighter, I had hope, I felt really good, and all this sort of business. If you can, you know, catch them before they start to say dip again, you're always building and reinforcing all the time. And then as they see those changes happen, which they do, you know, which they will, you start going a little bit, you know, let's start lengthening out between sessions. And again, explain to them, you know, go and get on that train, go and sit in that meeting, you know, and realize that you're not going to have to all the time be thinking, where's the nearest toilet, I'm going to have to be dashing out in 2 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if, you know, again, I'm not suggesting it's a light intervention, but essentially your first session is a large consultation and some belief change, bit of hope, a hypnotic experience. Even that, there is the possibility of them having significant change or shift after that first session.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a lot of what I'd call sort of ego strengthening, future pacing, all sort of things like that.
Yep.
You know, is key. And I might go a little bit deeper, but it's really very, very much a feel of what I get, just like I did when I was teaching. You know, I had a class of 30 in front of me, and you get a feel for which ones need a bit more pushing, which ones need a more of an arm around the shoulders, you know, which one need it explaining again. You just get that feel, and I think I'd bring that to what I do now.
Okay, great. Good stuff. So is there any homework that you give them to do between session 1 and session 2? Just sort of be mindful of their...
Not particularly. Sometimes I'll teach a few little techniques that, you know, I mean, just breathing, you know, I'll teach, you know, just a little bit of basic sort of things like that about, you know, just calming the whole system down if you sense that they're very, very stressed and anxious about things. I think I said to you, I don't record sessions, you know, I never have done. I don't think it's needed. I don't think it's right. However, sometimes people will say, do you have anything, because they quite like that, do you have anything I can listen to? And so, okay, you know, I've just got a couple of very generic ones, you know, that I've got, and again, just done on my phone, nothing particularly, you know, I haven't got any amazing, I haven't got anything amazing, what do you call it, recording equipment. But I had an email this summer from somebody that I worked with again 4 years ago, and it's the email line said, do you know you're in Minorca? And I sort of was thinking, no, am I? That sounds very low. I was actually on holiday in Rhodes at the time, and I was like, wow, a 2-cent holiday, that's great. And she said, I'm on holiday in Minorca. And then she said, who'd have thought it? She said, I never ever went you know, longer than about an hour away from home for holidays. She said, you know, husband's asleep. She said, I was going through my phone just getting rid of rubbish, and she said, I suddenly found one of your little recordings and thought, well, this is very lovely. You know, I'm just going to give myself 10 minutes of me time, just sitting on a sun lounger here in the sunshine and listening to you. And she said, it was just blooming lovely. Just thought you'd like to know. And I thought, well, great, how lovely.
Awesome. So that's great. And again, I love the fact that you just bang it into the phone, just get the voice recorder on and give them something to listen to.
I've never had anybody say to me, well, that's not very professional, because I don't sell it as such. So I'm not, if I was selling a product on my website, then maybe I would, I don't know, do something more. But it's just a little something, almost like an extra gift maybe, that if not everybody wants it or asks for it, I wouldn't say you have to. But if somebody asks you for it, or say, have you got anything, then why not?
Okay, great. I love that. I mean, yeah, exactly. You could get comfort from an answer phone message, couldn't you? If someone left you a voicemail or something, you know, it's,
but I'm not doing in that. It's not doing any what I would call therapy. You know, it's not sort of any of the techniques or anything like that. It's just a little bit of, really, you know, just research, just feeling good about yourself afterwards.
Okay. There's a couple of questions here about other issues. I don't want to get, I know they're perhaps related or in the same realm, but people have asked about Crohn's, colitis. Are you seeing people for those issues too, or are you
slightly, that's slightly more different from IBS? But what I would say with those ones is it's much, in my experience, is it's reducing the pain, and again all the emotional side of that, of I'm stuck with it for life, and also the it's a slightly different
okay, slightly different challenge.
I don't have many inquiries, but if somebody would, I would say, again, I would just say, let's just see what we can do here.
And you may well be able to reduce some of the symptoms which are giving them the most.
And then, you know, almost be surprised at what we can achieve. You know, that's I think that's what I would say. And again, I'm thinking last summer working with a young lad from uni, and again, he had these terrible flare-ups of, I think it was, I can't remember if it's Crohn's or colitis, I can't remember, and we reduced them. I'm not sure whether that's a very much a a physical change rather than say IBS, which is almost a much more an emotional link. Does that make sense?
Yep, sure. I mean,
But you can
exactly,
reduce
there probably
you can
still is a
reduce
massive emotional link, but physically,
often there has been an emotional link, but I think the actual gut has, in my understanding, I may be wrong here, I'm not medical enough to say, but I think the gut has actually changed a bit. However, we can work with pain. We know that really successfully. So I would have a slightly different approach.
Okay, so we've done an hour already, but let's push on for a bit. So you then get into, you know, the body of your session 2, session 3. I know there's not everyone here has done the training with JHA, but I think the majority have. So am I right in thinking that when you're dealing with these fears and pains and past events, that you're drawing upon parts work and, you know, time machine type stuff? Is that right?
Yeah, and again, you know, you've seen the handbook that I've produced for the course, and in there, you know, I've put in that these are in this session, this is what I would suggest. But again, having that flexibility as well, that's so important.
Okay. And with regard to parts, is there a specific name that do you address it in a particular way, or does it depend, you know, whether the client is suffering with anxiety or pain or something else?
Yeah, again, it really depends, but all the time I am dropping in conversationally as well as you know, in the actual session, in the hypnosis itself, you know, the part that runs the digestive system, even if I'm not doing the whole parts.
Okay, so
is that what it's called?
So that makes sense. So you constantly address the part that runs the digestive system as a functional part, a part of you that kind of exists and does stuff and could be addressed in this way.
Yeah. But I'm also, if it's somebody's very anxious, I would probably go in all out there for the part that runs that protective mechanism.
Okay, that's
great.
Know,
sort of thing.
All right. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about is your use of the client's metaphors, because we don't really teach it on JHA, mostly because my dad and I, we might in conversation respond to their figures of speech, but most of the time we're not doing that. My dad and I are going in with, you know, our handful of stories. We've used them thousands of times. Most of you have heard them. They're general purpose suggestions for taking that first step or a movement or whatever. You've found that listening to the analogies, if you like, the metaphor that your client uses to describe their issue has been really useful for you, something of a game changer. So can you tell us a bit about that and perhaps give us an example or two?
Yeah, now, I mean, again, I do use the stories, you know, the migration one and things like, you know, I use all of those. Of course I do, but also, it's, and again, that is a kind of little bit of homework that they can use themselves. But I'll again explain more about that in the course. But
so how do you elicit?
You did a deep dive or whatever the one about metaphors back in January, February time, I believe. And I was on that. I was cooking at the same time, so I was off camera, but listening to it. And a lot of people were tying. I could hear a lot of people really tying themselves up in knots about metaphors. And I was thinking, I mean, I'm very much, and again, I used to teach like that. I'm like, I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. Probably that's the way my brain works. But you know, if it gets too complicated, I can't do it myself. I can't understand it all. I'm going to keep it really simple. So you listen, you discover, what does that feel like for you? Because again, if somebody, this 13-year-old lad, and he just said, it just feels like my tummy's really churny all the time, you know, and he actually, as he did it, he was doing this really churny because he was trying to explain to me. So his mind had latched on to this really churny type of feeling. So it's like, okay, well, what would you prefer? And he said, I'd like it calm. And he actually did this with his hand, and he said, I'd like it calm, you know. And I said, oh, can you think of any water that's calm? And he said, well, where I walk the dog, we go past a mill with a mill pond, that's nearly always calm. Bingo, you've got it, you know. And also because he was not everybody is as what's the word you're looking for, using their arms and, you know, as gesticulating
like that,
as much as he did. I do, so I can get that at all. But actually, even, you know, during hypnosis, I just got him to use his hand, you know. So instead of that, let's just use that, think about mill pond, use your imagination and things like that. And then again, that's something that I would say, go home, practice that, think about it, just spend a couple of minutes before you go to sleep at night, you know, or the other time.
So there it is. So it's not like you have to then generate some, you know, epic of the mill pond. It's kind of imagery that he can use and imagine around, and you can sort of directly suggest around during the session.
Yeah, and there are a few, again, questions I ask, because some people go, what do you mean, what does it feel like? And again, probably I know this from teaching. Some people get it immediately, other people need almost a little more coaching to get the answers you want. And again, I'll explain that a little bit in more detail on the actual course. Because some of them just give it to you just like that, and others you know, a little bit more. But more importantly, how I use it in each session generally, you know, I just or sometimes those will change, you know. So we'll talk, so, you know, it's building on it all the time to you know, so, you know, that mill pond may have changed to something else. Well, let's talk about that then. But you're constantly dripping it into your sessions, or even conversationally.
And sometimes you just straight up ask, so what's that like? And
sometimes, as I'm saying to you, some people, you say, what's that like? You often get there, well, bloody awful, actually. Well, that's not very helpful to then go on with, you know. So that's what I mean by you need to have a little bit more, you know, well, if you could think of it like I don't usually use the word metaphor, you know, you just give a few examples and say, you know, so what does that feel like for you? You know, because again, there are some generic ones out there for IBS. But if I was saying to this young lad about, I don't know, I can't even think now, but if I was going down and he was thinking, but that's not what it's like for me.
I've noticed in the Horwell's work that it's almost invariably a kind of river and a log jam and stuff like that.
But you know what, for some people that might be what I don't think I've actually had that at all. I don't think anybody has ever said that to me, but again, he's got to do something fairly generic, hasn't he, that, you know, that sort of thing. So
I guess for the purpose of the research, yes.
And
Patrick's asked about, do we know about Paulson's work? So for those of you that, you know, want to get your head round the research, it's not all about Horwell. It's just that he has been consistently at this since 1984, and in many ways, you know, his work has contributed to how we do research and look at that data and manage it. He's, you know, you could argue that it's helped raise kind of standards in that regard. Before the 80s, hypno research, even though there was plenty of it, statistically was kind of pretty poor. There's Horwell. You've got another team, a Dutch team, who do a lot of the studies, and there's another one, Paulson here, University of North Carolina, who conduct a lot of the research. What I encourage you to do is to go on Google Scholar. If you haven't been on Google Scholar, just go and check it out. You won't get access to all of the full papers, but you just simply type in hypnosis, IBS, and you can then, it's going to show you, you know, it's going to point you toward all of the research in this area. It's on mine, it automatically ranks that by the number of citations it's had. So often you're going to see papers that are 5 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, because they've been, you know, referred to in other papers. That's all that really means. You can also rank them by date, which will show you what's going on now. So you can find out some of the latest stuff. You will learn something, you know, simply by reading the abstracts of these papers. But often enough, you know, if you type that title and the word PDF, you'll find it somewhere. If you know someone who's got access to a university database and access to all the journals, then ask them to do a little search for you and go and search for some of those papers. If not, you might have to, if there's one you really want, you know, you may have to pay a bit of money for it. is worth doing. It's going to give you a firmer grasp that no, this is real. We can help. Even standardized approaches are getting results often with like 80% plus of the people who are going through the experiment, which again I think is an incredible number, given the
I think
science.
Wowell advocates 12 sessions, I believe, in when he did his you know, as I say, I've never.
Yeah. I mean, but look, they have to standardize. I think there's something there. There's something there about you know, multiple sessions. There's some strong research about 7 sessions. There's evidence for 12. I think let's not get too caught up in it. But when you guys are designing your program, perhaps let's look beyond, you know, certainly let's look beyond a single session, but even let's look beyond 3 sessions or 4 sessions, which you might get into with weight loss clients. There is evidence that stretching this out over a period of time, having multiple sessions, it allows you to iron out more of the creases, the stresses, the anxieties, the beliefs that are adding up to these symptoms. So even if you're like, I don't get my head around science, I go blind when I see statistics, I would encourage you to still have a look at those papers, read through the abstracts, read some of them in full where you can look at the method. What it did for me, and it was the same when I heard Helen Bremner speak. Her lecture is now available on YouTube for free. We've made all the change phenomena lectures available for free. Only about 100 people have watched it. I can't believe it. Can't give this stuff away. My friend Ben here said once, you know, it's really difficult to sell old stuff. I was like selling 1 copy of the Arrow a week. It's the same with these change phenomena lectures. They're just sitting in the archive. No one was buying them. It's like, this stuff is, it needs to be watched, you know? So go to How to Hypnotize. I'll share the link in a minute and have a look at Helen Bremner's lecture. She's a little bit scathing about Horwell because she did her own research and got great results, but it didn't get funded. But when you listen to the techniques she uses, and this is not being critical of her in any way, but it's almost like, you know, cliche, hypno, a safe space, some imagery, it's within our grasp. And again, her results, like Helen here, were of a similar nature. You know, in her study, 100% of people experienced significant benefit, and over 80% lost their symptoms completely, which is pretty powerful stuff. So
Anthony, if I could just read this out. This is a chap I worked with 2 years ago in the north of England, and I always remember his phone call because he phoned me up and he said, I really am desperate for your help. He was a businessman and he had to drive a lot around the country, and he was actually almost stopping at every service station on every motorway. And he said, but you've got 2 problems here. He said, I'm really cynical of hypnotherapy. I don't think you'll ever be able to hypnotize me. And I'm not even sure this would work, but I'm desperate. Now, this is 2 years ago, and I got this email from him on the 21st of February this year. So, you know, almost 2 years later. And he said, hi, Helen, I hope this email finds you well. I just wanted to let you know you have changed my life. Dramatic words, I know, but I genuinely am at 100% better than I've been for the past half of my life. I think he was about 45. Whatever you did to rewire my brain has continued to improve since our sessions finished. That's the bit I can't believe, that even since we finished working together, I've seen so many changes, and especially in my anxiety levels and in my IBS. It's just not there anymore. I just wanted to thank you for all your help. And if you ever need a reference from an ex-hypno-cynic, I'm your man.
Right. I mean, it's just marvelous, isn't it, to get a testimonial like that, and the freedom for them to continue to improve. So look, I think we're going to wrap it up. We said an hour. It's been an hour and 20. I think I've got to most of your questions. There's a couple here. Are all your sessions based on packages? I guess that's an easy enough one to answer.
I really do IBS or anxiety. You know, I haven't
Okay,
done
so
you know, so yes, because occasionally I'll do just, but mostly yes. So even just it's probably, you know, yeah, a 4-session approach for everything else. But IBS, I do 5.
Okay. So, and Lisa said, what's the cost of the workshop? Okay. Now we mentioned the workshop, and we've got one message saying it's wrong to charge for a workshop about this. It should just be about helping people. Well, of course it is, but this is Helen's time. It's her approach. You know, she's paid to develop this approach and she wants to share it with you. So Helen, you tell me, if I was a hypnotherapist, I haven't done a lot of work, I haven't done any work with IBS, what's your expectation? You know, would I be able to start doing this work on Monday after the workshop?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think everyone here, you know, again, this isn't for people who haven't done hypnosis or any hypnosis training. Most people, as you said, have done the JHA. We're doing the workshop on the Saturday night. If you work Sundays, you could start with somebody on the Sunday. If you're working on a Monday, you could start on that Monday. You know, it's very practical. It's there step by step. Yeah, you could start with it, run with it straight away.
Okay, so you're going to teach us all that you do in these sessions. We're going to have a workbook with all of the techniques laid out and
structures and forms and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, your questions, your forms. So the cost of the workshop, guys, today is £175. You know, you've got to find what, a quarter of a client to pay that back. You've got to find one client, and we're going to show you how to do that. There is a link. It takes place on October the 8th, I believe, from 6 till 10 p.m. UK time. If you attend the workshop, even if you don't, you will get a recording. I know Helen has got practical exercises for that workshop. You're going to be, you know, going through some of the little bits which sit outside of our system, extra bits that she's added. So it's going to be interactive. I'm hoping that you've got benefit from this today. I know I have. I've been tapping away a few notes here. You know, simple things from the questions we ask, the beliefs we might crack, the way we might structure that first session. I've certainly learned something today. So thank you, Helen. Thanks for...
You're welcome. As I say, and I was out with a friend last night that I used to teach with, and I was just telling her, you know, the hypnosis summit that, and I said, you know, I was asked to be a presenter on there to do with my work with IBS. Yeah. And I said she's called Helen as well, actually, my friend I went with, and I just said, you know, 5 years ago, I'd left teaching with not a clue what I was going to be doing. You know, thought then about, oh, quite like this hypnosis malarkey, I'll get into that. Who'd have thought, you know, this time 4 years ago that I built a really, I'm not a business person. I don't know, it had never anything to do with business, didn't have a client base. I literally started from scratch with nothing. And yet here I am, you know, getting a course together, having a very successful business with a good living, and being asked to do all that, you know, be a speaker on Hypnosis Summit. And this is me. You can do it as well. You all can.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm just looking. It looks like I've pointed you at the wrong website, so I'm going to sort that out. Don't click on anything yet. The website's good. The offer is a bit mangled. Hold fire for 5 minutes, and if you want to book on, it will be ready to go. Okay, it's 175, not 225. I'm going to fix that right now. So thank you, guys. Thanks again, Helen.
You're welcome.
Awesome. See you soon. Oh, someone's got 175, so that's good. Click the buttons until it says 175. There's a few of them. Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Anthony. Bye-bye.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Bye.
Thanks both.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.